I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible.
When you say you're going to do something, you do it.
I do solemnly swear
There is no starting or stopping, only doing.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
You gotta protect it.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
In the name of democracy, let us all unite!
It has been a minute. Welcome back. Welcome for the first time in how fucking long to the Progressive Patriots podcast. My name is Leo. It's just gonna be me today, but I'm really fucking excited. I've been away, no fucking shit, but what I've been up to in that time is actually what you're gonna hear about in just a second. If you do or don't know, there is a phenomena known as deported veterans. So we dive into this. I'm about to dive into this issue with Dee. She runs or is a big part of a group known as Repatriate Our Patriots, which specifically serves to get our fellow servicemen, servicewomen back from countries that they don't even know. A lot of times when these people came to the U.S., things like DACA did not exist. There were no such things as dreamers. And they had the carrot on a stick in front of them. The, less orange and more in the form of a green card. You know what I mean? So it's, you're gonna... if you do this, you will get this. And we go into the whole thing, and it was a very illuminating. Like, I've been actively working on this particular issue as well as some other like electoral issues in Arizona, but we can talk about the Arizona stuff another time. So here's the interview with Dee about repatriating our patriots. All right, so the idea of what we're trying to do today is paint a broader picture of what the deported veterans issue is. How did it start? Where are we at today? And what, I guess, work efforts are in motion right now to try to correct it? So This is for the broader audience who may not know that this is even an issue.
Yeah, that's what we've been finding out, that a lot of people don't even know. First of all, they don't even know that non-citizens can serve in the military. Or they don't know that it's not automatic, right? They think, oh, you join and it's automatically. So yeah, clearing up those misconceptions is definitely a good start.
So just in my travels, I met two soldiers. I was at a school in what is now Fort Liberty, and I met a soldier from Honduras and then a guy from Bolivia. They had both served in the military there, and then they emigrated to the U.S., and then they joined the military here. And from what from the way that they explained it, like they had an active role in pushing like their paperwork along to get themselves naturalized. Where does the idea that it's automatic even come from?
Well, and mainly it's from the generations from like Vietnam and before. Vietnam and before, there was a lot of misinformation, right? Because of course they needed people to go to Vietnam. So the recruiters were telling them, yeah, as soon as you join, it's automatically, you're taking an oath and it's, you're a citizen right away. Yeah. And a lot of them, they find themselves deported because of that, right? Because they thought it was automatic. And then when they came back, they got in trouble and they found out that they were not U.S. citizens and that they had actually missed some immigration appointments. Because back in the day, you used to have to go to the post office and check in, right, through the immigration process to let them know that, yes, you were still here, you were being, responsible. So you will have to go, they will have to go into the post office and check in. And several of them missed their check-in appointments at the post office because they were in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
I'm not kidding you. And like when they came back, they got in trouble, as many of the veterans, from Vietnam era did, and they found out that they were not U.S. citizens like they were told they were, and they had missed immigration appointments while they were in Vietnam.
Right. Like, I missed them because you made me miss them.
Yeah, because I was in the jungle, like fighting this country, right? And that is very similar to like what happened to me. I wasn't deported, but I was not able to get my citizenship, my naturalization, because I was deployed to Iraq.
That sounds if anything is going to be automatic, if that were to be a situation, deploying forward into harm's way, so it seems to me like that should be like the instantaneous thing. Like you're putting your life literally on the line. Like you are in the space where your death can happen. Yeah.
So I missed my naturalization ceremony 3 times because of my deployments. And a lot of people say, it was like, well, you know what, that there should have been like an exceptional policy,
right?
And when you came back and your naturalization wasn't, you were not able to do it. They should have just granted it to you. And was like, well, it's not a priority for the military. Let me put it that way, because even if they don't care, like whether I'm a U.S. citizen or an immigrant, I can still do my job.
Right.
I have a military ID card that allows me to travel and go where they need me to go, and that's it.
It's weird because when I was in Afghanistan, I had to work a lot with interpreters. Like me, 1-to-1, they were basically like my shadow. They would talk about like the visa situation, which like that's a whole completely different mess. But they would say that it just had to be, I think it was a field grade officer or higher that signs off on like their visa pretty much. And so how could that not work for a naturalization ceremony? That's completely ridiculous.
And that is one of the things that they are still requiring right now. So for example, there's some non-citizen service members, right, that they still have to get an 06 signature to sign their paperwork, right, saying that, hey, yes, this service member works for me and he's here, right? But once you get out of the military, it's so hard to go back and find an 06 to sign a form for somebody that they don't know, right? So that is still a requirement for non-citizens.
Wow. So you get out, you're on the individual reserves, and there's no must. Like I was recalled out of IRR, but most people I know never heard anything. There's no musters or anything, so they had no interactions. It's like you're completely cut off from the resource that you need.
Yeah, which makes you like wonder, right? What is the real reason?
Right.
And why the military, and this is all the branches, not just one. Why don't they really put in an effort into delivering on their promise, right? Because clearly it helps recruitment numbers. And every year you keep going back to saying, oh yes, look, naturalization after basic training, right? And then people will join because it's a perk of it. Yeah. But why don't you want? And my conspiracy, kind of squirrels in my brain begin to think, oh well, because if we become citizens in the military, then we have opportunities and access to more jobs. Right? We can become officers, we can become generals, we can become, the elite. And then guess what? The elite groups start to not look like
what they do now.
They used to.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where it stopped us. Like as a non-citizen, you cannot become an officer. As a non-citizen, you cannot obtain a secret security clearance. Yeah. Right. And so it limits you for the type of jobs that you can do in the military. And it's mainly down to like maintenance, truck driver, like all of those kind of
the dirty work.
Yeah. Right. So it's when you look at the whole thing and like the history, it's really rooted back in racism, back from before the Revolutionary War.
It's not surprising to hear that it goes of course it goes back that far. The Marine in me, I'm thinking like, well, at least they treat us equally bad. You know, at least we're all worthless. But so there's that. And I don't know. It seems kind of backwards. Like you would want to have at the least a green card or like a permanent resident kind of situation, so that you at least don't get deported as you work towards naturalization. But
yeah,
my thinking here is I cannot think of a better melting pot for someone to, like, quote unquote, assimilate to be a good little American into American culture. I don't know of a better place to do it. Maybe university or something, but yeah, this is one of the best places to do it.
And I mean, it's also one of the best places to learn leadership, right? And several people, and I've heard them say that, yeah, I joined the military because I wanted to learn the leadership style, right? Those leadership skills that you don't learn anywhere else. And so they joined, they did a couple of terms, and then they left, right? But it really does become a disservice, especially because it's used as a bait, right?
Carrot on the stick.
Yes, like they target, minority communities, they target immigrant communities, right? And they shine this like, oh, look, education and housing and medical and citizenship, right? And only one of those things, only one thing is in the contract, which is your GI Bill, right? Everything else is like your healthcare insurance and stuff, just like any other employment. But it's the lack of education, the lack of resources, and the lack of accountability programs that exist today in the military to ensure that naturalization happens. It's very, very, very limited.
So that's a good way to transition into, like, we talked about it coming from Vietnam up to right now. And so what estimates, I know that there is no record of just how deep this rabbit hole goes, but just within your scope of work, how big do you think the problem is? Like, how many people, how many different places, what situations are people being put into because of this broken system?
Yeah, so within our scope and within the database that we've been able to consolidate, thanks to like word of mouth, in interviews, Facebook, social media, podcasts, like interviews like this one, we have over 400 veterans who are currently deported or in deportation proceedings. And that is just something that we know, right? Not because USCIS gave us a database or gave us numbers or any of that, because that it's another vault that we have not been able to crack, right? Because we've asked several times for information, because they're supposed to be taking into consideration their military service, right? And at least tracking if they're veterans and when they deport them. But it's almost like it's a double-sided coin, because a lot of veterans and service members do not want to identify themselves as veterans when they go through that process. They don't want to identify themselves that they've served. And it could either be because they are scared that it may hurt their benefits. So, for example, if they're receiving VA compensation, right, they think that that may be taken away,
right,
if they reveal that. But they don't. We have veterans right now who are currently deported, and they are receiving their VA benefits.
Yeah. So, well, you did the job, so you get the thing, right?
Yeah, and the VA doesn't care your naturalization or your immigration status. Like, there's one department that does not care about your immigration status. If you are service connected and you're able to prove it, you deserve VA benefits.
Right. So you said that you've been trying to get more information from the naturalization service, and they won't give you. Have they given you any reasons why they won't?
So they want us to put in a FOIA request, right? And they said, go ahead and put in a FOIA request and it'll come to the system and then we'll adjudicate and give you the information that we have. Yeah, we all know about FOIA requests and how long that can take, right? So we have actually submitted a couple of FOIA requests for different time frames and different periods of time, right, to get out information, but we haven't received anything yet. There was a GAO report conducted in 2019. It was initiated by the Congressman Takano's office, right? And it actually was an investigation, almost like a deep dive into DHS and ICE and where were the gaps. And so they found out that they were not tracking military service like they were supposed to. They were not identifying them. They were not taking the military service into consideration, and they were not reporting them. So they gave them, hey, this is the 4 things you need to fix. So if we go to the website today on the GAO report, they already fixed all of them. But yet, we can't get any information.
I have just pardon me for being a cynic for just a moment, but I have the slightest feeling that they don't have any of it. And this is CYA. That's all this is.
Yep. And so we are currently in the process of doing a follow-up, right? Hey, you said you fixed it, give us the information. So Congressman Takano's office is working on a follow-up into that GAO report to see what information they can give us at least between 2011 to today. So that it's at least 10 years. So they gotta have something.
Yeah. You would think that this is, if any time frame's going to have it, would be recent with technology being better.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually with technology being better, the technology disparity outside of the U.S., I know that Nick spends a lot of time with these guys. I've talked to him while he's with them, and so I get to hear a little bit secondhand. And just high level, what kind of issues do these guys have to deal with? Or women as well, but what kind of issues do these people deal with when they're not where they should be, which is here?
Yeah. One of the main things that they have to deal with is going back to a country that they don't know, at all, right? Because the majority of them left that country when they were little. We're talking about 5 or 7 years old. Some of them don't even speak the language. They have no relatives or family in that country. And they have no employment. And along with that, it goes with, they stand out. You don't look like a local, right? When you're a veteran, you don't look like a local. A lot of these countries where they go back to, there's high crime. There's high levels of cartels or any other civil groups that are in civil wars, and they become target. They become target of for example, the cartels, right, in Mexico. They are sought out and threatened so that they can join the cartel, so they can train the cartel members in military tactics. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, they have to escape, hide, and try to avoid being captured by the cartels because they don't want to do that. And we have had, I want to say, 2 veterans that have been actually kidnapped by cartels in Tijuana, Mexico. And they were lucky enough to have been able to escape, and our organization had to actually relocate them to another state to keep them from being killed by the cartels. So in addition to that, right, you have the homelessness aspect, the unemployment, the healthcare. If you and I struggle with PTSD here in the United States, and we are just down the road from a VA that we can walk in and ask for help, it may take a while to get an appointment, but we can at least walk there, right? We'll go there. And if we're really struggling, there's a 1-800 number that we can dial, right, to speak at a crisis line. those veterans who are deported, there's no 1-800 number. There is no VA hospital that they can walk to. There is maybe a hospital but they may have to pay, or they may not be seen. So this suicide is one of the biggest challenges that we face with the veterans that are deported. It comes up almost on every conversation that we have with them. Just because they're hopeless, right? They feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And what's so hard for an advocate perspective to do and see is to not even be able to give them, hey man, like, let me do this warm handoff to this crisis response center, right? So they can get you through this. Like, because they're not able to do via telehealth outside of the continent of the United States. Man. Even with all of the technology, telehealth is not available outside of the country because of the liability.
Goodness, like just thinking in my personal professional career, whenever like the executives travel outside of the U.S. for vacation or whatever BS they make up as a business trip, they telecommute all the time. It happens all the time. So I understand. I mean, it's a government system, but at the same time, like these are our people. Like, what are you doing? These are the people we're supposed to take care of.
Yeah, and at the same time, right? As a social worker myself, I understand the liabilities, right, and the danger that, for example, a counselor can occur if you are on the phone line or telehealth with somebody and it cuts off. Right? You cannot call the local 911 and say, hey, go do a welfare check, right? You can't do that outside of the country, right? There's no way to make sure that individual is safe outside of the country. But the VA does have a foreign medical program that they advertise for any service members who decide to go live outside of the country, right? And they can still access VA healthcare benefits. But it's by reimbursement. You have to pay for your medical care first, and then you can file for a reimbursement. And the doctors that are vetted and approved by the VA to be one of those providers, right, they're very few. And they're usually in big cities, in the capital, and limited appointments. So the majority of the times our veterans end up being deported back to very rural areas. And they have to travel, and they don't have the money to travel. So, and that is considering that they already have a VA rating, right? That they got a VA rating before they were deported, which a lot of them don't. So that means that they don't even have a VA disability rating. Right.
That in itself, just me having to get one, that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And you're here in the States.
Exactly.
And you're tech savvy, and then you have all the VFW, American Legion resources to help you file the forms. So think about someone who's been deported for example, in El Salvador in the jungle, right? Who are they going to go see that can do a CMP exam to get a VA rating?
Right.
What?
Yeah. Oh.
They're going to walk in there and was like, yeah, I got PTSD from war. Yeah, welcome to the club. All of us do.
Yeah.
We live in El Salvador. We are at war all the time.
Yeah, like the gentleman in Ecuador, like Ecuador was just in a state of emergency, active warfare on the streets between the military and rivaling gangs, and it was just seeing the videos and stuff. I don't know. I've seen some shit in my time, but oh my goodness, I cannot imagine that.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, right? Like, he's seen some shit. I've seen some shit, right? I've been to Iraq in 2003 and 2005. I was in infantry, but I was a gunner, doing convoys. And at least when some shit went down, I knew there was a whole rest of my platoon behind me. And I had guns, I had equipment, and I had stuff to do, right? But now I'm in a completely country that I don't even know, and there's a war going on, and I'm a veteran, and like, where is my support, right? Where is the support? Where is the backup?
At the very least, where's my equipment to take care of myself, if nothing else? And that's that would just put a bigger target on you if you're armed in the middle of a conflict that you don't even really belong in.
Yeah, and that you shouldn't be in. But this is those service members, right, and those veterans that were willing to die for this country, but for some reason they're just not good enough to live in the country that they were willing to die for.
Yeah, that yeah, I know exactly. I thought I knew how badly that felt, but holy cow, that's beyond anything that I've experienced. Yeah,
and I don't know if Nick mentioned one of our cases, right? This veteran who's from El Salvador. He was deported to El Salvador, and he was a Marine, served in Fallujah, was actually injured in Fallujah, was blown up, has a severe TBI, and had a 90% disability rating because of that TBI and those injuries. And he was deported to El Salvador during the martial law. And he almost died. And like Nick was there. And if it wasn't because we back home, we were working with pro bono attorneys, working to get him on a humanitarian parole back to the United States because of his medical condition, right? He would have probably passed away in El Salvador from his health conditions, from the injuries that he incurred while serving in the military. And like, it's like, dude, you survived Fallujah and you're gonna die in Salvador in like the worst hospital, like next to 3 other people. Like,
yeah. Okay, so that makes I don't want to try to paint them as bad people. I don't, because they're not. But I understand how PTSD and how that can really make you behave in unfortunate ways. But how do they get caught? Why do they get caught? Like, what kinds of things do they usually do that gets them tripped up and caught and brought into the law and deported?
Yeah, so some of the cases that we've seen is usually drug possession, and is usually like
self-medicating.
Very small amounts. Yeah, very small amounts, right? And we do have some robberies and some like domestic abuse type of charges, right? But it all has, from the cases that we know, it all has stemmed from PTSD and not having the resources to be able to successfully manage and control those symptoms, right? And I mean, I got out in 2006, and it took me 10 years to file my VA claim. 10 years to file my VA claim. During those 10 years, I was doing everything maladaptively coping, drinking, alcohol, and just being reckless because I was not going to go get help. No, I was good. Look, I got all my arms or my legs, and I was fine. There's people who needed it more, right?
Are you me? That's exactly what I was thinking too. Is the exact same thing,
right? It's like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need the VA. Like, look at all those Vietnam veterans. They all need it more than I do, right? Or look at this, my buddy, like, got blown up, doesn't have any legs. He needs it more than I do. Like, I just need to suck it up, right? I'll be all right. And because of those unfortunate choices, right, of not to seek help, they end up getting caught in the criminal justice system. And unfortunately, it has to be an aggravated felony, right? For that charge to become a deportable offense. And it varies by state. What is considered an aggravated assault or an aggravated felony, right? It changes by state. So it's really just up to what state or city you're living in and how they charge you, what they charge you with. And the saddest thing about it too is that, I don't know if you've heard about Veterans Treatment Court.
No, I have not.
So some cities, some states, and this is a program that is funded by the state, and it's called Veterans Treatment Court. So what it is that when a veteran comes through the criminal justice system, right, they are identified. Somehow they find out that they're military. So that program jumps in and says, hey, you're a veteran, you qualify for our program. Instead of sending you to serve your sentence or charging you with this, you're going to go through our program, go to rehabilitation programs, get a mentor, and like kind of turn your life around.
Right.
Right. A lot of service members are very fortunate to have been able to take advantage of that program. But there is no checkbox when you come through, when you get booked, right? You commit a crime, you come into the jail system and they book you. There's no box that says, are you a veteran?
Right.
Have you served in the military, right? A lot of the states and cities do not have that question. So it does not trigger any of the resources that are available for veterans for specific those cases, those situations.
That I can just speak for myself. I am very fortunate that when I was it was just a family dispute. Not like I wasn't attacking anyone, but I was getting pretty close to becoming violent. So that a relative of mine called the police. I don't, as far as I know, I live in Arizona, in Phoenix. As far as I know, I don't know if that thing exists here. I just was fortunate that one of the police officers who came was a veteran, so he understood a little bit, and he's like, well, this isn't great, but you haven't done anything terrible yet, so we can get you help. And I was like, man, imagine being in a place where they don't care, because you don't look the right way.
And imagine how that person not have been a veteran, right? And not see hey, you know what, I understand, I get you, let's just get you some help. Me putting you in jail and deporting you is not going to do you any good, right? It's actually going to create more problems, because now you're leaving your family behind, you're the sole provider, so now it's like a ripple effect. Right. But there are several states and cities, they have those resources. And you know how they say that there's so many resources that we don't even know which one to use, right? Or they're all over the place, but we can't find them when you need them. And so it really begins at educating, at informing people what's going on, exactly what we're doing here today, right? Just talking about it, making sure that we take control of the narrative that they have about service members who are not U.S. citizens. We can continue to let them paint the picture of we're all criminals, we all come in the military to get our citizenship, and then commit crimes. Yeah,
instead of anchor babies, it's anchor service, I suppose.
Yeah. And no, it's look, a lot of us, served after 9/11, and a lot of non-citizens joined after 9/11.
Because of 9/11.
Because of 9/11, yeah. And so for me, right, people have asked me this question, is everything that you've been through, right, the injuries and all the stuff that you've gone through, would you do it again? I was 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would.
And we have asked that same question to veterans who are deported, homeless, in a country that they don't even know. And they're like, yes, I'm in the middle of nowhere, I have no home and I have no food, but I will do it all over again, because that is my country.
Yeah.
That is patriotism. Not the shenanigans that whoever fool driving around with a flag tied to their truck, right, called patriotism, right? No, that is patriotism.
Yeah, he's quite literally about to die for how he believes, how he feels. Yeah. Whereas you get to have a big truck and complain about people who complain about your truck or something.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I've seen this meme on social media, and I'm sure you have too, and whoever is listening, they've seen this meme too. It's like, well, people tell me, oh, must be nice, you have a VA disability check. It was like, well, last time I checked, the recruitment office was open to everybody.
Yeah.
So it must be nice that you did not have to choose the military, or you chose something else.
Yeah, that's one of the similar one is whenever any sort of hint of a conflict starts up and the possibility of U.S. troops being sent there, and lots of people start rabble-rousing about, send in the troops and we'll kick all their asses. Well, the recruitment office is right there, buddy. Grab a rifle. I'll see you at the front.
Yes. Why don't you join us?
Yeah.
And this is just the times are changing, right? And right now we're in the middle of an election year, and immigration happens to be number one topic of discussion. And immigration is what this election is gonna, run on.
Definitely one of the main things. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so veterans who are deported continue to get piled into the immigration aspect.
They're lumped into the entire thing.
Yeah, and it's not. You don't see veterans at the border, waiting to come across, asking for asylum. They're not the ones. If anything, we actually had a veteran that came back, and he was sitting at the waiting area at the port of entry, and he was seeing Ukrainians, Afghans go through, get paroles approved, just pass them, and he was sitting, waiting, hoping that he will also get a humanitarian parole. And a lot of those Afghans that are here, translators, right, and their families, they probably served for a veteran who is currently deported. And the Afghan interpreter is here in the United States with their family.
And maybe in a few years, the Afghan gets naturalized and they sponsor a veteran to come back. That's it's a very dark timeline. That would be.
It is when military service gets politicized, right? It becomes a political thing. It becomes a political stunt of why do we want to bring the Afghans back? Not because we should and that's the right thing to do. Like, they served next to our service members, right? They were translators. They saved a lot of their lives. No, because if we do this, it's going to look good, that we did it and Biden didn't, right? Look at the disaster that Biden did. Like, no. Like, you should be wanting to do this anyways.
Yeah.
And so it's so unfortunate that that we have to continue to fight to pluck them out of the immigration topic, because this is not an immigration problem.
It's a veterans issue.
Yes, this is a veterans issue. This is a military service issue.
Absolutely.
And honestly, it's a Department of Defense issue, because they did not deliver on their promise. They use
us.
Yes, they used us, and they're like, yeah, come over here. And then when you want to get out, sure, get out, bye. Right? We don't care. You didn't get your citizenship. Oh, all right, whatever. You didn't say anything.
It sounds like a you problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm not going to take the responsibility from us, from the service members, right? We should be more proactive, and we should try to take this into our own hands. It is our naturalization, et cetera, et cetera. But also, if you're an E1 or an E2, what are you gonna do? Go tell your platoon sergeant, hey, I gotta go get my naturalization. I can't go to the field because I gotta do these appointments. No, you shut up and go do what they told you to do.
Yeah, I got it should be on us, to use the old story. We should be taking ourselves to the post office. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, we can't, as a young private, what are you going to tell them? Yeah,
I was an E3 and then I was an E4, when I first started, and then when I deployed, when I deployed, I was an E5, And even as an E5, right, I couldn't just like put mission aside and say, hey, I'm going to go take care of my naturalization. No, I still had to ask my platoon sergeant. And if they didn't know and if they didn't care because they had to meet mission, then it didn't happen.
Or if they didn't care because you don't look the right way or come from the right place or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So there is active legislation. Well, quote unquote active. It's HR 4569, if I'm not mistaken. What is that legislation? What's it for? What's it about? What does it do?
So the Veteran Service Recognition Act, that's HR 4569. It's a bill that was introduced by Congressman Takano, and this is the second time that he has introduced it into Congress. It passed the House last year in 2021. It passed 2021 passed the House, but it didn't pass the Senate. Then it was reintroduced again in 2023, and we have not been able to get enough Republican support to balance and making it this a more bipartisan bill. We have one Republican, which is the initial co-sponsor that went in with, that's Representative Salazar. And she introduced that with Congressman Takano, right? So they made it a bipartisan bill. But after that, all her fellow Republicans have become MIA.
Right. It's strange because I don't know. I expect to see a lot of campaign commercials that feature American flags and talking about the troops. We're gonna be featured extensively as their little decorations for their commercials or their rallies.
I was gonna say it will happen on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and any other patriotic event, during the Super Bowls, footballs, like whatever, events. But the Veteran Service Recognition Act is actually, it is bipartisan, right? And they will actually ensure that non-citizen service members are provided the benefits of becoming citizens. And one of the main things that it does, really, it takes away the barriers that have prevented immigrant service members from being able to complete the naturalization process, right? Number one, while they're still in service, that is the biggest issue, right? And then meaning it will direct the Department of Defense to establish offices and tracking systems, right, to make sure that it does happen. It could even go as far as to doing what the Air Force and the Marines are doing right now, which is doing the naturalizations right after basic training.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, the Marine Corps can do something right. Look at that.
Yeah, and the Marine Corps actually has been one of the ones that's been doing it the longest, and they don't brag about it like the Air Force did, right? Doing press releases all of a sudden and everything. It's great. And I'm glad that they're doing that because they're letting the other services know it's hey, it can be done. We're doing it, right? And that is actually the best way to go about it because once you finish basic training, you do your naturalization ceremony, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Ever again. It's just part of your admin process as you're coming through, just as your papers are being put together throughout boot camp. Yeah, that's the perfect time.
Yeah, and one of the other things that it does, it protects non-citizens against unjust deportations, right? Meaning that their military service will have to be taken into consideration. The IRA Act of 1996. So in 1996, President Clinton signed an immigration law, where it removed from immigration judges, right? It took their ability to take military service into consideration when doing deportation proceedings.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And this is back in the day when this immigration law was signed because they were trying. It was the fight against drugs, and they thought all
strong on crime or whatever.
Yes. So they signed that into law, and it became to where now judges used to be able to take military service into consideration when they were doing deportation proceedings, right? But now they are not able to do that. So this will put that back into place. And it will also create a process for deported veterans to apply to come back, meaning humanitarian paroles, which is something that we're currently doing. We have brought back 91 service members back from being deported. Some of them have obtained their legal permanent residency. Some of them have become U.S. citizens, but a lot of them are still here just temporarily on a humanitarian parole. And that is just a lot more stress that puts on the veteran, right? Yeah. Imagine you're here and you have a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, you're just watching the blade swinging down, getting closer and closer.
Yeah, and for somebody who's struggling with mental health, that is not a good thing to have.
Or even just other physical health conditions as well, because a lot of these Vietnam fellows are getting on in years.
Yep. Yeah, so this bill will definitely do a lot of good things, and it requires support from the Republican side of the aisle as well. And we are, as advocates, we continue to contact members of Congress and ask them to put your money where your mouth is, because when you need a veteran to stand next to you on Veterans Day, right, and you praise them and you say, our troops, we value our troops, et cetera, right, we need you to actually take action.
Yeah. So with that said, what can people do to help your organization repatriate our patriots? Can they call their Congress people? Would calling their senators help? What can people do to take some action to help push you forward?
Yeah, so this is something that we continue to ask all the time, right? We ask them to either call their congressman or congresswoman, their senators, right? Or send them a message and let them know that this is important to you and that veterans should not be getting deported. It's something that when they hear from their constituents, right, they realize that this is something that matters to their community. And we know that it matters to them because when we have these conversations, a lot of them did not know this was happening, right? And the minute they hear that they're being deported, they're like, wait a minute, what? You mean they went and fought for our country and now they're deported?
My man went to Fallujah, and what? And where is he now?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would be appalled as well.
Yeah. And at the same time, right, what they can also do, I know there may be a lot of you listening that are members of an American Legion or a BFW chapter, right? Talk to them about it, because the American Legion and the BFW are two of the largest veteran services organizations that actually have a lot of weight, can have a lot of weight in Congress. And congressmen and senators, they listen to this veteran service organization, right? So if you at your post or your Legion, you get engaged, become engaged on this and voice it up the chain of command, right? You can definitely have an impact.
I was just thinking of mine. I'm being in Phoenix. In the particular part of Phoenix, there's a lot more. It's a lot more Hispanic demographic. So my VFW is a lot of older Hispanic men in Vietnam era guys.
Yeah.
So they would definitely get it.
Yeah, and the American Legion, actually, it's a strong supporter of the Veteran Service Recognition Act. They wrote a statement of support, and this is something that we are continuing to work with them on the advocacy of it. And at the same with the BFW, they actually have a resolution. They wrote a resolution to help deported veterans in to bring change into this policy. We have the post in San Diego, BFW post 7420, Don Diego. And the commander, she is an Army combat medic who has been the commander for that post, and she is killing it there. She really is. Her post serves as the touch point and the landing point for the veterans when they come back through Tijuana. So they actually go to her post and they get some supplies, some like clothes and personal hygiene items, and they get connected to the VA and to other resources to begin the reintegration process in their town. So a lot of other BFWs and American Legions can do that as well.
For some people, like the most they can do is maybe throw some money into the pot. Is there a place that they can donate? Yes, they can go to repatriateourpatriots.org, and we have a donate link at the top on the page. And all of the donations that come into our organization go directly back to the veteran. All of us, we are all volunteers. We are 99% veterans, and honestly, all the funding goes to help support with legal or translation requirements for the veteran, and it also goes for food, clothing, and travel for when they get the good news that they are able to come back to the United States. In addition to that, it supports the efforts of our international liaison, which is Nick, right? Everything, when he goes out and does what he does, he either comes out of pocket or the organization helps pay for the travel and lodging as much as possible. But we are all funded through donations. We don't have any grants. The government did not allot any grants for organizations like us who are actually doing the work so that they can take the credit. Well, I think this is a good place to tie the bow. Thank you, Miss Eve, very much for your time. And yeah, anybody listening, you know what to do. Don't now that you know this is a problem, you can't pretend that it doesn't exist anymore. So yes. Let's make something happen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And there you have it. Oh, rough to think about. If you're like me, you struggled with health, mental health, physical health before or during and after deployments, and like now tack on being in a country you're not able to navigate. It's really difficult to think about. I do have some audio and video. I think I'll be putting together like a collection of clips from different people that Nick has gone out to visit, and you'll get to hear directly from them what life is like on the ground where they're at. You have your action items. It's time to make something happen. Man, it's difficult to be excited about plugging shit after that. Questions or comments, concerns, whatever, 833 Lux Pods. You can text or call goes straight to voicemail, and if you're not an asshole, I can cut your audio in, and that'll be fun. Or if you just want to text, that's fine too. All the socials, LVX Media Net, everywhere. If you can't find it, we're not on it. LVXmedia.net is the website. That's where you can check out all the other shit that we get up to. And there again, it's a good mix of a lot of different things. So yeah, check that out after you call your fucking representatives. Do that first. All right, I'll fucking catch you next time. Peace.